As we continue these conversations, from protests to solutions, another ethnic group recognizes the struggles of the African American community. Latinos have been fighting for equality since migrating to the tri-state and say they understand the message of the Black Lives Matter movement. Reporter Paola Suro explains the struggle for Hispanics and how they are joining forces with their African American neighbors.
We are a community that is still marginalized.
Two people with two different stories.
You feel the chill in your arms and you feel like, is this really happening? Is this surreal? Is this did I hear this correctly?
Both sharing Hispanic ethnicity and the feeling of discrimination.
I went to a fast food restaurant and the person taking my order simply looked at me and said she couldn't take my order. I told the manager, who ignored me. I called police, but they ignored me as well.
He started changing the tone to a more aggressive tone and degrading how Mexicans were not adding value in the community.
This feeling is nothing new. This booklet, titled Cincinnati, a city of immigrants struggling toward acceptance and equality, explains why.
We are around 3.1% of the population, which is extremely low. Extremely low. We're one of the states with the lowest number of Hispanics in the nation.
President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Cincinnati, Alfonso Cornejo, explains that 6 waves of immigrants created this city, Hispanics being the last group, which started to grow in the 90s.
The tradition about immigration is that everybody goes against the last coming, and we are the last ones.
That's why the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce created events to blend the cultures together, from Salsa on the Square to Cincy Cinco, one of the largest spring festivals in the region. It also gathers with leaders from other chambers of commerce and is part of a group called the Coalition Against Hate to promote conversations between different ethnic groups.
Makes the city more welcoming. And I think that's part of our challenge, is to promote those things and to use them.
As for these men,
being from one country doesn't make you bad or less. Being from a different background or how you look doesn't make you also a better or a worse person.
Education and support from state and federal leaders is what they think could push for inclusion for all.
I hope people get to know us Latinos, to realize what we bring to this great country. That's why it is called the United States. It is diverse, unique, and different. I love this country.
All right, Paula, great reporting there. And as you've been having conversations with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, do you know if they're actively working to try and support the Black Lives Matter movement in the African American community at this time?
Sure. So I talked a little bit about the different groups that they have formed during a lot of this time, but Alfonso Cornejo, who you heard from in my story right there, he said there's also a group called 8 as 1. So it's many leaders in the community, including the leader of the African American Chamber of Commerce, and they get together to really talk about how they can network people who are different to them and find ways to really come together and make the greater Cincinnati area more inclusive. So Alfonso Cornejo really talked about how important communication is, and that's why they've kept that communication line really open with that leader from the African American Chamber of Commerce. And you know what, they used to gather every 3 months, but because of COVID-19, of course, now they haven't been able to get together as often, and Cornejo says they cannot wait to be able to get together again and to really continue supporting this movement.
And so what about local police departments? Does the Hispanic community feel support from them?
Sure. So Cornejo actually made a point to say that specifically in Butler County, the Hispanic community has not felt a lot of support from law enforcement there. Cornejo said that they're actually very outspoken about not wanting new immigrants in. And he says that even affects the children that are hearing these messages. It affects how they grow up and it affects the thoughts that they have. I do know that the Cincinnati Police Department has been actively working to train their police officers in Spanish because, of course, there's that language barrier with a big part in our community. Some people do not speak English and they only speak Spanish. So they have been training their officers in Spanish in order to be able to reduce that language barrier there and understand the community better.
And also, you know, we got to talk about recruitment efforts too, because again, we have to recruit different types of people with different types of backgrounds on the police force so that they have some idea of the kinds of people in the communities that they serve. And so I'm wondering if any of the panelists have any comments about just recruitment efforts, or has there been any discussion around that at all?
Well, I do think Lisa's story at the beginning also pointed out the importance of hiring minorities in order to really have different points of view when it comes to, who we put out on the streets and who is taking care of us at the end of the day. Just having different points of views, keeping that communication line open, and hiring more minorities at the end of the day.
Yeah, because that's how you build trust, and that's how you continue the conversation and keep the communication open.